I was staying in a hotel in Chicago, Illinois during a business trip, and I was going to stay the whole weekend. It was an older hotel, one that still used small keys rather than keycards to enter the rooms. I didn't mind. It seemed nice to get away from the onslaught of technology. When I checked into the hotel, it was packed full. A nasty storm had struck, stranding many tourists and canceling flights. No more rooms were available, and many people were being turned away because of the lack of vacancy. When I approached the front desk to check in, I noticed that all the keys for the rooms on the 8th floor were still on the wall. Not a single key was missing. It seemed odd to me that an entire floor would be vacant when so many people were all clamoring to check in and get to their rooms. I could see the clerk was stressed out and he was ready to just about give up and go home, so I tried to lighten the mood. Kind of weird, isn't it? What is? The clerk asked. How everyone on the 8th floor is missing. The clerk gave me an odd look and his face paled. What do you know about the 8th floor? He replied in a serious tone. What? Nothing. I answered honestly, a little embarrassed that my attempt to lighten the mood backfired. I just noticed that all the keys for the 8th floor are still behind the desk. The clerk blushed a little and tried to laugh it off. Oh, yes, I see now. He went back to checking me in and handed me the key to my room on the 9th floor. Enjoy your stay. I will. Thanks. I awkwardly accepted the key and grabbed my bag, heading for the elevator. Just like the lobby, the elevator was also packed. It was difficult to stand next to so many strangers so close by, let alone enter and exit the small car. I struggled to reach and press the button for the 9th floor, but I managed to see over the crowd of people and reached the button panel. It was then I noticed that the button seemed to be missing for floor number 8. That's funny, I thought out loud. I wonder why there's no button for the 8th floor. But no one in the elevator reacted. They either didn't care or they were too preoccupied and didn't hear me. Once I finally got to my floor and checked into my room, I took a moment to relax and unwind on the bed. I had to give a presentation tomorrow, and I needed to be alert. I decided to go to bed early that night and to practice my speech a few times to make sure I sounded confident. I took a shower, brushed my teeth, and stood in front of the bathroom mirror as I practiced my sales pitch. A strange groaning sound from the room beneath me got my attention. It sounded like there was a man in pain or upset. I ignored it and continued to practice my speech. The groaning from the lower floor continued on, getting louder and louder by the minute. Angrily, I stomped the floor as hard as I could and shouted, "Hey, buddy, are you okay?" There was no response. The groaning stopped. Satisfied that the man realized he was making too much noise, I continued to practice my speech. Just as I finished the first half of my speech, the groaning began again, but this time it was much louder and angry. If this was going to go on all night, there was no way I'd prepare for my presentation tomorrow. I knocked on my neighbor's door and was greeted with a grumpy response from a young woman and her new husband. "Excuse me," I politely tried to engage in conversation. "Do you hear that noise in the room below us?" "No." The woman sounded more confused than grouchy now. "We haven't heard anything until you pounded on our door." "Oh, sorry." I apologized, once again feeling embarrassed. "Must be the pipes or something then. I tried to think of a possible alternate explanation so I didn't seem like I was a crazy person. Well, I'll call management then. Good night. The couple shut the door and locked it. I returned to my room where the groaning noise continued. I picked up the phone on the small table next to the bed and called the front desk to complain about the noise. When I mentioned that it seemed to be coming from the room beneath me, a room on the 8th floor, the woman who answered the phone suddenly got quiet. Sir, there is no one checked into that room. It must be someone on the 9th floor. No, I tried to sound confident. It's not coming from the walls. It's coming from the floor. Well, the woman sounded rattled, and I could sense that she was trying to think of an explanation just to get me to hang up. I'll call maintenance crew. It's probably a leaky pipe or a problem with the heating ducts. Yeah, thanks. I hung up the phone, not believing her for an instant. The groaning was growing louder and angrier by the minute. I put my hands to my ears to try to block the sound, but it wasn't enough. I walked back into the bathroom and turned on the shower in the sink full blast, hoping the running water would drown the noise, and it helped a little bit. I sat on the bathroom floor, trying to think of a way to get some sleep, but I didn't have any other options. All the rooms were full. I couldn't request a new room, and there was no other hotel that would have vacancy during the storm. Suddenly, the pipes on the showers began rattling violently. The shaking was so strong that it caused the shower to sputter as it continued to run. The sound was like thunder inside the walls and thunder outside the hotel, as well as the pounding rain. Sounded like there was a freight train barreling down the tracks right at me. I left my room, grabbing my key and my phone. I made my way to the elevator so I could lodge a complaint in the lobby. As soon as I stepped inside the elevator, I remembered that the 8th floor couldn't be accessed. The number was not an option, and I remembered that all the keys for the 8th floor were still behind the desk at the lobby. How could anyone check into a room on the 8th floor? Curious, I exited the elevator and made my way for the stairs. I walked down the stairwell from the 9th floor and directly on to the 7th. That's impossible, I told myself. I walked back up the stairs and double-checked the floor numbers. Sure enough, just like the elevator, there was no number 8. I walked up and down the staircase a few times, trying to figure out what was going on, when I noticed a small imperfection in the wall next to the doorway that led to the 7th floor. I checked and realized that it was a gap. A gap was between a hidden door and its doorframe. Using my fingertips, I pried the door open and found a small staircase leading back up one flight, up to the otherwise non-existent 8th floor. It was dark and dusty, like no one had used the passageway in years. I used the screen on my phone to light my way as I made it through the secret stairs. There was another door at the top of the stairs. It wasn't sealed away or hidden. It was easily accessible. The door was numbered 8. Opening the door, I found myself on the 8th floor and alone. I could just feel it. There was no one else on the floor with me. It was dark in the hallway. Not even the exit signs were lit. I continued to use my phone as I walked down the hallway, checking each door as I passed. They were all locked. That is, except for one door. The unlocked door was for the room directly beneath mine. I knocked once, just to make sure no one was secretly checked into the room, but no one replied. I opened the door, still trying to figure out why this door was unlocked, and found myself standing in a room that mirrored my own perfectly. The lights didn't work. I tried the switch a few times, but there was no power on this floor. Hello? I called out into the room. Is anyone in here? Still no response. I went over to the phone and picked it up, but the line was dead. The amount of dust and cobwebs told me that no one was in this room, and no one had been for quite some time, but I still felt compelled to look around. I opened the door to the bathroom and was taken aback by what I saw. There was a bathtub in the room, unlike mine which had a shower, and the tub was full of water. The water was at the top of the tub, threatening to spill over at any moment. I stepped closer, still using my phone to light my way, when I noticed a dark figure in the tub. It looked like a man, a dead man. Shining my phone over the tub, I stared down into the still water as if in a trance, trying to look at the man's dead face. As my senses slowly came to me, the man's eyes opened and looked directly at me. I fell back on the floor, dropping my phone and losing my light. A splashing sound came from the tub, and I could feel cold water spilling out onto the floor, soaking my clothes. The sound of heavy, wet footsteps exited the tub. The second footstep was all the motivation I needed to get up and run. I bolted from the room, not caring about my phone or who the man was, and ran down the hall back to the door from whence I entered. I ran down the stairs all the way down to the lobby and didn't stop until I collided with the desk. Breathlessly, I tried to tell the clerk what I had seen and that we needed to call the police. The clerk, who looked scared, not so much because there was a dead body in the hotel, but more like he was afraid of getting fired, escorted me to the manager's office behind the desk. Sir, the clerk tried to sound calm and reassuring. What did you see exactly? I told him what I had seen and what I had heard. I showed him the wet spots on my clothes where the tub's water splashed on me. I didn't care if I got arrested for trespassing or causing a disturbance. I had to tell someone what happened. The clerk listened intently to my story, not blinking, not looking away. When I finished, he got up and walked over to a large file cabinet. He opened an unmarked drawer and began thumbing through an extensive collection of files. Pulling a file from the drawer, he opened it up and pulled out a very old newspaper article. "Is this the man you saw?" he asked as he handed me the article. I looked at the clipping and felt my stomach drop. It was him. That was the man. The clerk sat down across from me and smiled a little. "You're not the first to see him." That was not the reaction I was expecting. "Read the article. It should help clear things up." The article told the story of a man who had gone away on a business trip and returned home to discover that his pregnant wife had been cheating on him and that the baby wasn't his. Heartbroken and betrayed, the man checked himself into a hotel and never left his room. He was heard crying and wailing in heartbreak for 3 days before he finally stopped. When the maid entered his room to clean, she found his body in the bathtub. He had taken his own life, drowning himself after ingesting many sleeping pills. Is this why you don't let anyone check in on the 8th floor? Because of him? I asked, feeling more at ease knowing that I wasn't crazy. No, the clerk admitted. He's only one of the reasons we don't let anyone check in on the 8th floor. What do you mean? The clerk just smiled again. You see that file cabinet? Yeah. And that unmarked drawer on the bottom? Yeah, I answered again. What of it? That drawer contains every reason we don't let anyone check in on the 8th floor. Ever since this hotel opened in 1873, we've had people die in very unusual ways, always on the 8th floor. That's strange, I commented, feeling a little queasy. What's stranger is the fact that no two deaths were the same, and no two deaths ever took place in the same room. Each room on the 8th floor has housed a tragic death, and each room has been reportedly haunted by that death. That sent a shiver up my spine. What? How? Are you telling me that the 8th floor is cursed? Anyone who checks into a room is either going to die or be haunted? The clerk bowed his head. It's not just the rooms that have seen death. Maintenance workers have died attempting simple repairs. One man was electrocuted trying to fix the lights. Another fell down the elevator shaft to his death. A maid was found dead, hanging by her neck at the end of the hallway. I sat in transfixed fear at the story the clerk had just told me, and I didn't want to believe it. But shouldn't we call the police? I saw a body. Everyone does, the clerk explained. Even the police have seen the bodies, but have never been able to explain the situations. I didn't know what to do. It was late, and I was exhausted, and I didn't want to cause any more disturbances. Reluctantly, I returned to my room. I took the elevator and held my breath as the car passed by the sealed-off 8th floor. As I approached my room, I saw something on the wet floor outside my door. It was my phone. Bye, Eddie. My mother calls up to me from downstairs. I take my rightmost headphone off my ear, and I pick up the sound of the general bustle in my downstairs hallway. I can hear my dad and my sister laughing to each other as coats are taken off from the rack. Bye, I call back, keeping my eyes fixed on the screen. The game goes on. Are you sure you don't want to come? My mom calls up. Could be fun. Fun family outing. I roll my eyes. I'm good, Mom. Bye. My sister calls up too. Come on, Eddie. Don't sit around the house like a loser all day. Goodbye, I shout down again. All right, see you soon, my mom replies. Later, loser, Louise calls. Though it's good-natured, really. We do get on. I can hear Mom gently chiding her, though I can't make out the words. I sure do recognize that tone, though. Their voices fade out and the footsteps soften. The front door is drawn closed. I hear the sound of Mom locking the door behind her. Awesome. Some peace, at last. I don't have to worry about anyone barging in and interrupting. I return my headphone to my ear and reinvest my full attention to the matter at hand, securing a victory. Gotta keep my current ranking. A second loss in a row and my score will tank. Can't afford that right now. I tap away at the keys. Explosions rattle in my ears as I navigate the environment, fully engrossed, muscles tensed as I do my best. At last, bringing the round to a close. I clap my hands in victory and lean back, the chair squeaking as I do so. I slide off my headphones and take a moment to revel in the victory, listening to the soft patter of the rain against the window. The day is gray and overcast. Wind sighs gently in the trees and on the street outside. I glance at the clock. Damn, it's been almost an hour already. How time flies. I spin around in my chair, drumming my fingers against the desk. I catch a quick reflection of myself in the screen as it loads, sat at my computer, just like you probably are right now. Or maybe you're on your phone. Same difference. Connected, engaged, and yet, for now, alone. The rain patters, and the game freezes. The loading circle becomes stuck mid-turn. I try to shake the mouse, but that too has become frozen. Fuck's sake, I mutter, tapping the exit key. Nothing. It's as I'm going for Control-Alt-Delete that I hear a noise from downstairs. Sounded like a cupboard door being shut. Instantly, I find myself suppressing a wave of panic. It's fascinating, really, how quickly one's level of alertness can change. All of my senses are primed and I become hyper-aware of the sound of my breathing, of the beating of my heart. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe the sound was something else. Did it come from outside? But as I listen, it comes again. Another cupboard, and then what sounds like the fridge. It's okay. Don't panic. Don't panic. Serial killers don't go looking through cupboards and fridges, do they? I creep to my door and slowly, gently, steadily ease it open, slipping out into the corridor, tiptoeing to the banister of the stairs, listening out for some more clues. I hold my breath, and then, as I hear water start flowing into the sink, I allow myself to relax a little. Killers don't wash their hands before a murder. What would be the point? I'm summoning the courage to call down when I hear a voice call up first. All my tensions are relaxed at once, as the voice is my sister's. Hi, Eddie. I've got some food for you down here. I call back. Oh, great. Did you stop at that cookie place on your way back? Please tell me you got the caramel ones. There is a pause. Come down and see, she replies, as I hear stuff being moved about on the counter. All right, give me a sec. I shout down, heading back into my room to force restart my computer. I take another look at the clock. I think to myself, they haven't been out very long. I wonder why they came back. Maybe the rain. I press and hold down the power button, then return through my door to the top of the stairs. How come you guys are back so early? I call out. There is no response. The door to my parents' room is open. I glance through it to see the rain wash gently down the window at the room's far side. For some reason unknown to me at this stage, unease creeps quietly to the back of my head. Louise, I call down, still hesitating by the banister. Where's Mom and Dad? There's another silence. I walk the length of the hallway, passing by a little window to the street outside. My parents' car, it would seem, has not returned. I continue on until I am stood at the top of the stairs, looking down them and into the hall below. The lights are all still switched off, and an unsettling aura seeps up the steps from the shadows beneath. Come on down, Eddie, comes my sister's voice from somewhere unseen. The kitchen, I think. Come see what I have for you. I cannot hear the sound of cupboards now. There's no rustling, no movement of any objects or bags or jingling of keys. My sister finishes speaking, and then there is silence. Silence and the gentle patter of the rain. My hands, I realize, are sweating. What the hell is this? I think to myself. Eddie, come on, man. Just pull yourself together. But something compels me to remain where I stand. Some unseen force keeps me from taking a step down onto the stairs and descending to the bottom floor. Louis, I try to call back, but my voice fails me. It does not project the way I intended. I clear my throat, though my mouth is dried. The sensation is an uncomfortable one. Eddie, comes the reply. Eddie, come downstairs. When did you get back? I managed to call down. Where's the car? Silence. Louise. I called down again, unsure of what else to say. And then, a moment later, from around the corner, my sister walks slowly and deliberately into view. She stops at the bottom of the stairs, still shrouded in shadow, and looks up to me. We hold each other's gaze for a moment, her at the base of the steps, and I at the top. She does not speak, and her expression shifts to a wide grin. Her teeth appear very white in the darkness. She makes a quick motion with one of her hands. Follow is the implication, and then she turns and walks slowly back into the kitchen, out of sight. It is not until I cannot see her that her voice comes again. Come on, Eddie. Come and see what I have to show you. The hairs on the back of my neck all raise in cold alarm. I do not follow. With my jaw clenched and blood frozen in my veins, I make a hasty retreat to my room where I close the door shut, perhaps just a little too quickly. The thud of the door going into its frame reverberates around the walls. Less than 1 second later, in the exact same instant, I hear the unmistakable sound of something barreling up the stairs, knocking carelessly into the banister with rapid, ascending creaks and clamoring. I cry out loud in terror, and with a surge of adrenaline, I grab hold of my chest of drawers. I haul it across the floor into place, blocking the door. My potted plant falls and lands with a dull thump by my feet, soil spilling out across the carpet. My heart hammers in my chest as I stare at the door, tensed and waiting for the handle to start rattling, waiting for something to throw itself against my door from the opposite side. My sister. But none of those things happen. The minutes tick by, excruciatingly slow. The sounds of the sudden race up the stairs ended as quickly as they began, and with the utmost caution, I tentatively press my ear against the wood, listening, breathing deep, straining to hear for any sign or clue as to what the fuck is going on. Open the door, Eddie, my sister's voice whispers from the other side. I leap back from the door in horror, fumbling around on my desk for my phone, too afraid to look away. I grab it and tap the passcode, shaking my fingers, failing the password the first time, and the second. The thing on the other side of the door does not knock, does not try to force its way in. It only repeats itself. Eddie, stop screwing around. Open the door and let me in. I have something to show you. I try to call my mom first. I bring the phone up to my ear, shaking. The line is engaged. Fuck. Come on, Eddie. Open the door. I want to show you something. Louise, I reply at last, my voice trembling. You're freaking me the fuck out. If this is a prank, just stop, okay? Just stop. Open the door, Eddie. Open up and let me in. You need to see this. Please, come with me. Please, if this is a prank, I forgive you. Just stop messing with me. Silence. And then, just come downstairs. You need to come downstairs with me. Just follow. Screw this. Next up, I call the police. An overreaction, perhaps, but better safe than sorry. The tone sounds through the phone. There's a click. Then, 911, what's your emergency? I take a deep breath. Hello, 911, comes through the phone. Hi, there's an intruder in my house. I whisper at last, as quietly as I can. Though, evidently, my sister hears. Her voice has risen in pitch. I don't think she likes this new development. Eddie, you need to open the door. Let me in. You need to open the door. You need to open the door. Let me in. This is really important. Really. Something about the way she said those final words set my teeth on edge. It wasn't slurred as such. Just, I don't know how to describe it. As if the muscles of her speech, I guess, were getting tired. But despite my fear, I do my best to ignore her, and I provide my details to the person on the line. The rain starts hammering down against the glass, and the wind picks up. Okay, sir, they say after I told them the location. A car will be with you shortly. Please stay on the line. I do so, keeping as far away from my bedroom door as I can, terrified that at any moment the person with my sister's voice is going to barge through. Eddie, she shouts, making me jump. Eddie, you need to let me in. You need to come with me. I swear that I heard a car drive past outside, and I turn to look through the rain-washed window, and as I do so, my heart nearly stops in my chest. Down there at the side of the road, standing in the rain and looking up into my window, right at me, is my family. My mom, my dad, and Louise. Just standing in a line, hands by their sides, staring up at me, staring up into my window. And they are all smiling, all grinning that same chilling grin, looking up at me, unblinking. The police arrived about 10 minutes after that, and they had a hell of a time calming me down. I never heard my sister leave from behind the doorway, though the officers didn't find anyone, even after a thorough search of the house. My family outside vanished after I briefly turned away. 1 minute they were there, and the next, gone. My mother, my real mother, God hopes, nearly had a panic attack of her own when she came home to find cop cars parked up outside. Louise had no idea what the hell I was talking about. None of them did, and she insisted that she wasn't playing any kind of prank. She can be annoying at times, but still, I really can't see her doing anything like this. I can't see any of them doing something like this. I had to wait to see their mouths move in time to their speech before I could even begin to let my guard down. It's been about a month since the incident. I have a lock on my door now, and I haven't seen or heard anything quite so terrifying since. But I still get angsty at night, and hell, who wouldn't? And I tell you what else, too. When my family are headed out, and they ask if I want to go along, these days, I say, yes. I'm infatuated with her. Utterly infatuated. And it wasn't at a healthy level. Far from it. I would think about her every moment she was away. I would sometimes sit on my couch and just stare at my phone, waiting for her to text. I'd tell myself, don't contact her. Don't. It'll come off too strong. But then I'd find myself clicking her name on my contact list before my inner voice would continue. You don't want her to know how desperately smitten you are with her. It's unattractive. It'll scare her off. No, you must wait for her to call you this time. But it was excruciating and exhausting, almost unbearable. I once heard that the ancient Greeks believed that falling madly and irrationally in love with somebody was a curse that you would wish upon your enemies. I could never understand what they meant. After all, isn't falling head over heels in love the ultimate goal nowadays? But now that it's happened to me, I have to say, the ancient Greeks were right. This is a curse. I was barely in control of myself, almost as though my infatuation with her had possessed me. The two of us were sexually active together, but still in the dating phase. We were at that make-or-break era of a blossoming relationship, where we'd either have the talk and formally be in a relationship, or we'd start to slowly drift apart, the latter of which I don't think I'd be able to cope with. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to. Almost everything about her captivated me. The way she held her hand over her mouth when she laughed, how she'd caress the pendant of her necklace when she was frightened, how she'd twirl her hair in her fingers when she was excited. All of it, her smell, her smile, her eyes. Yeah, I know. It probably makes you sick hearing about it. I feel the same way. I was never the hopeless romantic type, but now I can't stop fantasizing about her. I'd think about us doing the long 3-hour hike up to that magnificent view from one of our first dates, to that first kiss as we overlooked the lights of the city. But this time, I'd get down on one knee, bring out the ring, and well, you know what would happen next. Alright, fine, I'll stop. Yes, this is a girl I'd only been casually dating for a couple of months. I shouldn't be thinking about proposing yet. I know that. I'm just barely able to control myself any longer. I feel as though I'm losing power over the decisions I make. And that brings me to why I'm here writing this out at the moment. It started with the first real thing that troubled me about her. We'd never actually spent a night together. No matter how late she was over, once either of us showed signs of being tired, she'd up and leave. She wouldn't leave awkwardly or in anger, just a casual kiss goodnight, a smile, and a call me soon. It was something I really didn't even notice the first few times she did it. But after almost 8 weeks of dating, it became strange. I'd have to ask her about it. It took drinking almost an entire bottle of wine before I had the courage to do it. She looked almost defeated when I asked and lowered her eyes in embarrassment. I knew this talk would come eventually, she started. She took in a deep breath with a long, drawn-out exhale. Recently, she paused again. I've started talking in my sleep. She shook her head in embarrassment. It's called somniloquy. I looked it up. I shrugged and laughed out loud. My demeanor seemed to say, that's it. No, Stephen, listen, she said. She wasn't laughing. It's bad. It's It's completely out of control. It's not just random words or gibberish. No, it's horrible. I say horrible, disgusting things. She was starting to raise her voice, breath heavy, and tear up. I approached her and held her. I told her it couldn't be that bad. I told her to spend the night. I told her she was probably exaggerating. I was wrong. That night, she stayed in my house, but she warned me of something before falling asleep. Whatever you do, don't wake me up. It makes me really scared and disoriented if that happens. And don't respond to me. Just ignore it. I nodded and agreed. If it becomes too much, she continued, just leave the room and sleep on the couch. I won't mind. I told her not to worry about it. I told her that it wouldn't be a big deal. I told her I wouldn't leave to the couch. I'd stay beside her in bed. But I was wrong. I couldn't even last one night. We both fell asleep without incident. I don't know how many hours passed, but I woke up in the dark with the sensation that someone was watching me. And then I remembered she was with me. She was actually spending the night. I smiled, but then I noticed the shadowy outline of her sitting up in the bed. She was looking down at me, staring. It creeped me out, I'll admit it. Her posture was entirely different. It was as though it wasn't even her at all. Then she spoke. It wasn't her voice that I heard. It was much lower and gravelly, like something out of a horror movie.
I'll chew the skin from your bones,
she said. I froze. At first, I just kept looking at her. This was not at all what I expected. I thought it would be more like the way Tourette's is often portrayed, just random swearing and shouting. I honestly thought to myself, what will I do if she attacks me right now? What if she really does try to chew the skin from my bones? But then she just lied down and went back to sleep. I was creeped out. I tried to lie back down and ignore her, but struggled. I couldn't even close my eyes without thinking. Maybe she's sitting up again and staring at me. And then one time, I rolled over to look at her, and she was. Her face was pressed right towards mine. Her breath was foul and rotted, something that was most certainly not normal for her. She spoke again in the same voice as before.
If you don't move to the couch, you'll be dead by morning.
That did it for me. I sat up in a moment and headed for the living room. She made some sort of wheezing sound as I left. I think it was supposed to be laughter. I was lying on the couch, but I wasn't going to be able to fall back asleep. I was far too shaken. I was staring out towards the window, hoping to see the first few hints of the sun rising. And then I thought I heard something from the bedroom. I listened, and then I heard it again.
Stephen.
It was that same low and gravelly voice. It sounded like a witch. I tried to just ignore it at first, but then it continued.
Stephen.
Still, I said nothing.
I know you can hear me, Stephen. You're awake now. Why don't you come back into the bedroom?
The voice barely sounded human.
Or maybe you'd prefer if I came to you.
I still didn't say anything. I was told not to, but I listened. If I heard her start walking towards the bedroom door, I'm not even joking, I would have run right out of the apartment, but she had asked me not to respond to her sleep talking, so I didn't. And then I heard her once more.
Sorry if this spoils your plans.
She began laughing.
The two of you were supposed to walk that trail again.
She started. I wasn't even remotely prepared for what she'd say next.
You'd both be so tired when you'd reach the top. You'd look over the city. Then you'll get on one knee and bring out the ring.
She began laughing, and that's when I realized this wasn't just a problem with sleep talking. It was something much more. Something supernatural. I had never told anybody about my proposal fantasy. There was simply no way she could have known about any of it. This was no longer about merely talking in one's sleep. This was about possession. I can't go back into the bedroom. I have no idea what would happen if I did. Instead, I'm going to wait it out, holding up in my living room until the sun rises. I have a couple more hours yet. I can hear her laughing occasionally in the bedroom. It's still not her voice. Still that same low-pitch cackle. But as I sit on my couch writing this out, here's what scares me the most. Maybe my infatuation and utter obsession with her wasn't normal. I said before that I felt like I was losing control of myself. More so, I believe, than the typical falling in love story. No, I fear that the infatuation I felt was the entity taking control of me, of it controlling my thoughts, fears, ambitions, and anxieties. Maybe once I become completely absorbed, a transfer would occur, and she would be free of it. I know I should leave, that I should open the front door, get in my car, and drive away from here. But I can't. I can't leave her. I've already lost control. I'm infatuated with her. Utterly infatuated. Every other child in my 7-year-old son's class has been on the Hell Train roller coaster at our local funfair. He comes home from school every day with eyes like a puppy and the voice of an angel. Not a child that's prone to making a dash for it the second mine in his mother's back is turned. Lauren says you feel your whole tummy is doing backflips. I look my innocent little boy in his imagination-packed eyes, and I feel my stomach do a backflip of its own when I remember why he can never experience such joys. Lauren's just trying to sound cool, kiddo. I've heard it's not all that fun. I glance back at the TV, begging fate to take my son's attention. Daddy, are you scared of the Hell Train? My only child has no idea how many nights I've stared at that ceiling, wishing that the scariest thing in that funfair was Hell's Train. I'd give up every limb I have to fear those dimly LED-lit tunnels rather than the slapping sounds of bulky leather shoes bolting towards your cart when you go through them. I'd give away my car just to be terrified of the steep drops and not the white and red-faced mysteries that wave at you as you reach the bottom. I'd let my boy stay up all night if I knew he wouldn't have to hear those vile, manic screeches of laughter that I'm currently listening to at 2 a.m. on a Monday next to my sleeping wife. This town looked so perfect when me and her moved here 8 years ago. When she got pregnant, we just couldn't envision our little boy growing up in the industrial, run-down working-class town that we'd been raised in, and we took to the internet to find a better family home. Many a night she'd sit on the sofa, consumed by her laptop, shouting out the pros of any town that caught her attention. How about this? All good schools, a local college, beautiful areas, a fun fair in the summer that's only 2 hours away. I was sold. Everything pro my wife read that night rang true. The place was angelic. It was the things they didn't talk about that have led me to where I am today. When I brought up the demonic cackles that ripped the midnight silence up to our neighbors, I got the kind of laughter you'd get from a new colleague that didn't hear what you said but hoped it was a joke. My wife said she inquired about it at her new job and said she got similar, followed by a topic change. I forgot about them and slept through them after a few months. I only ever got a real answer once my son was 1, and we took him to the local fun fair to see what rides allowed babies with their parents. I swear to God, I thought they were animatronics at first. They just don't move like humans. I watched a few of them approach families in the expected, goofy manner we're all used to clowns doing. But they may as well have had a leprosy diagnosis on their foreheads by the way the parents reacted. Mothers screamed, fathers shielded their kids and completely shifted their directions. Even the kids looked startled and awkward at their presence. The fun fair isn't exactly acres big, yet the place was littered with them. White faces and obnoxiously big red smiles smeared on them that stare at you like you're a city boy in a hillbilly village until they remember what they're supposed to be doing. I tried ignoring them and avoided their gaze like they were beggars looking for change. My wife was too occupied with our boy, who seemed to be the focus of their attention. They escaped my memory for a second once we found a small, cartoonish-looking train that allowed babies to sit on their parents' lap throughout the slow and steady ride. But they dragged themselves right back into the forefront of my consciousness once the ride came to a halt, and one of their faces, one of their evil, monstrous, smeared, smiling faces, was right next to the cart window, staring at my wife and our boy. I hurried my family off the ride and caught the attention of a young ride attendant guiding us towards the exit. Please, tell me if I'm just a new father being paranoid, but why are all the clowns here like, that? She shot me a cold, questioning look. Why are you asking me? They don't work here. Just ignore them. I decided we'd seen enough of the fun fair. I rushed my wife to the exit, following the attendant's advice and ignoring the eerie stares. I noticed that the faster we moved, the more they seemed to join the already gawking clown by the ride. They all stared as I kept one hand on my wife's back, keeping her at the same pace as me as she pushed the stroller. Their jumpsuits were all different colors with different patterns, yet they all had the same sadistic grin and malicious fire in their eyes. That's when I heard it. That demonic cackle that no longer ripped the midnight silence, but pierced the daytime peace. The other families at the fair fell silent as I cast one more glance back at the growing gang. I still don't know which one was responsible, but they all looked capable of such an unnerving noise. No one in this town will give me insight to what these things are or where they came from. We're not a town from a horror film. We're not cursed or anything, but kids go missing just like anywhere else. Only when they vanish here, they stay vanished, and a new clown in a new jumpsuit with new makeup stares at me as I walk past the fair on my way home from work. The cackles seem to echo louder when the missing posters are up, and I'm not putting my son's face on a telephone pole as long as I live. Well, Are you? No, son. I'm not scared of the hell train. I sigh. What I'm scared of is them remembering him if I ever take him back.